Hey guys, welcome back to the Echo Cabin, and I'm Echo. In today's video, we'll be talking about something that has been discussed in other videos, however, a phenomenon that is linked to it that I feel has been rarely explored. So, make sure to grab your popcorn, grab your snacks, grab whatever makes you feel cozy inside, because it's about to get a lot more unusual. In 1959, 9 hikers were found dead in the Ural Mountains under chillingly strange circumstances. You've probably heard of the Dyatlov-Pass Incident, but here's what you may not know. A modern scientific theory claims to explain it, and somehow, eerily similar tragedies since then suggest something darker. Perhaps a pattern that's too strange to ignore. And I remember being a kid and watching BuzzFeed Unsolved, and this was one of the cases that they covered back in the day. There was a couple of other famous YouTubers that had covered it, and all of them had linked it to a strange, unfamiliar cause. Some people claiming to have seen flashing orbs, the developed pictures showing bright lights in the sky, and even the rambled writings in the journals of the hikers talking about wild men after their mysterious deaths. In 2021, researchers published a study suggesting that a rare type of snow slab avalanche could explain Dyatlov. This idea is that heavy snowfall and strong winds caused a delay mini avalanche, collapsing the hikers' tents, forcing them to flee barefoot into the night. These strange injuries, broken ribs, skull fractures, could have been caused by the compacted snow, not by anything supernatural. On paper, it's neat, it makes sense, but then, why do eerily similar cases keep appearing across Russia's mountains in Siberia, long after Dyatlov? In 1960, just 1 year later, a group of geologists in Siberia vanished. Their camp was discovered abandoned, tents ripped open from the inside, just like Dyatlov. Their bodies were never recovered. In 1973, a group of students disappeared in the Klamar-Daban Mountains. When rescuers found them, some were half-dressed in freezing weather, as if they had fled in blind terror, only one survivor remaining. Her story was so disturbing that Soviet authorities silenced her, declaring her unstable, recounting panic, hallucinations, and desperate flight down the mountain. To this day, her testimony remains one of the most unsettling first-hand accounts of unexplained mass panic in the wilderness. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into where it all started. For those unfamiliar with the story, or who may need a reminder, this is what happened during the Dyatlov-Pass Incident. The Dyatlov-Pass group was led by none other than Igor Dyatlov, hence the name, a 23-year-old engineering student. He and 8 fellow students from the Ural Polytech Institute set out on what was meant to be a challenging but routine ski expedition. By February 1st, the group had pitched their tent on the eastern slope of Kholat Sakal, a mountain whose name in the local Mansi language ominously means Mountain of the Dead. When search parties finally located their camp weeks later, they discovered the tent collapsed, cut open from the inside. Footprints led away into the snow, not from the boots, but from bare or socked feet. The first bodies were found just under a mile from the tent, near the tree line, besides the remains of a small fire. 2 men, stripped down to their underwear, their skin burned, their fingers raw from clawing at the bark of nearby trees. 3 more bodies, including Dyatlov himself, were found halfway back to the tent, frozen in poses that suggested they were desperately trying to return. It wasn't until months later that the final 4 were uncovered under several feet of snow in a ravine. 2 of them had broken ribs, another had a fractured skull. One woman was missing her eyes, and another her tongue. Some Some of their clothing tested positive for radiation. The Soviet investigation concluded vaguely. The hikers died from a compelling natural force. Case closed, but speculation ran wild. Avalanche, military testing, UFOs, paranormal phenomenon. No single theory explains every detail. And this is where conspiracy had ran amok. Most people coming up with something bizarre, eerie, and mysterious. Were there other factors involved? The news and the government had tried to keep this as concealed as possible, but with how widespread this whole case was, there wasn't anything that could have been done to prevent it from being seen on a broader scale and a massive funeral held for the skiers after the event had happened. In 2021, a team led by Joanne Gaum and Alexander Perzin published research in Communications, Earth, and Environment proposing a snow slab avalanche. Their model suggested that the hikers cut into the slope to pitch their tent, destabilizing the snowpack. Hours later, a slab of compact snow collapsed onto the tent. The hikers, believing a larger avalanche might follow, slashed their way out and fled to safety at the tree line. Injuries to the bodies in the ravine, according to the researchers, could have been caused by the heavy snow slab, as if a large, pressing weight was crushing their bodies. The theory was praised for its rigor. Even National Geographic reported that the mystery was finally solved. What a relief for everyone. But while the snow slab explains some detail, the tent damage, the injuries, it doesn't account for everything. Why were their bodies half dressed, sometimes barefoot? Why was radiation found on their clothing? What about the eyewitness reports of glowing spheres in the sky? More importantly, if Dyatlov was a freak accident, why do eerily similar tragedies appear again and again across Russia? Just 1 year after Dyatlov, in 1960, a group of geologists in Siberia disappeared under suspiciously familiar circumstances. Their camp was discovered abandoned. Tents were slashed from the inside. Supplies were left behind, but this time, no bodies were ever found. The Soviet press never reported the story, and only fragments of it remain in archival notes and local accounts. Some versions claim searchers later stumbled on scattered bones, but nothing conclusive. The details that survive mirror Dyatlov uncannily: an abrupt escape from camp, violent tent damage, and a group of skilled outdoorsmen who seemingly lost all reason. Why has this case remained buried, while Dyatlov became world famous? Perhaps because no bodies meant no photographs, no autopsy reports, and therefore no evidence to study. The incident became a ghost of a mystery lost in the Siberian snow. The most chilling account comes from 1993. Another hiking group in the Kamar Daban range, 7 in total, suddenly fell into chaos. Their leader, Valentina Utachenko, was the only survivor. She later recounted how her team was suddenly overcome with panic, confusion, and even hallucinations. Members began tearing off their clothes despite the freezing cold. Some collapsed, vomiting and convulsing. Within hours, 6 were dead. Valentina alone staggered down the mountain, traumatized but alive. To this day, her testimony remains one of the most unsettling first-hand accounts of mass panic in the wilderness. The official report, hypothermia, but her detailed story doesn't read like exposure to the cold. It reads like something environmental, psychological, or otherwise triggered a wave of irrational terror and physical collapse. Looking at these together, a troubling pattern emerges. Camps abandoned in terror, tents slashed from the inside, Hikers undressed, sometimes barefoot, severe injuries or sudden death without clear cause, and survivors or witness reports of irrational fear, hallucinations, or disorientation. Scientific theories attempt to explain parts of this pattern. Avalanches, possibly, but they can't explain hallucinations, radiation, or mass panic. Infrasound from the wind, documented to cause fear, nausea, and anxiety, but rarely death. Carbon monoxide from faulty campfires fits some symptoms, but no traumatic injuries. And then there are the whispers of stranger causes. Military experiments, chemical weapon tests, or even phenomena we don't yet understand. To the locals, these mountains were long considered cursed. Kholat Sakal, after all, means mountain of the dead. So, where does this all leave us? The snow slab avalanche theory may explain one case, but how do we account for the others? If the Dyatlov hikers were simply victims of a natural disaster, why do we find the same bizarre details repeating in 1960, in 1973, and in 1993? Maybe these incidents are coincidences, tragedies that look similar but have separate causes. Or maybe, just maybe, they reveal something hidden in the Russian wilderness. Something that drives groups of people to sudden, inexplicable terror. Something that leaves only silence in the snow. Until every archive is opened, until every witness account is taken seriously, the truth will remain buried, and the mountains will keep their secrets. Thank you for watching, and Echo out.